Have your attention, please. This is the City of Lawrence Common Council Park and Recreation Committee meeting. Oh, I got a hammer. It's June the 6th, 2022, and it's 5:30. We have a couple of things on the agenda. One is to discuss proposal number 11, which is the appropriating additional funds and amending the 2022 budget with respect to the general fund. Someone from the administration here to discuss that?
Good evening, committee members. Joe Murphy, Deputy Chief of Staff. I'm going to start by distributing materials to you. We'll go through all these over the course of our meeting, but the first item I'm handing to you on the top of your stack here is an item.
That's 12. You got it now?
Thank you.
Is a memo that was sent out, actually dated March 30th of this year, which was when this resolution was introduced to the council, and it covers in brief detail all the additional appropriation requests we're asking for as part of this resolution or a proposal. If you'd like, I'd be happy to go through them line item by line item, or if you'd prefer, I can go ahead and take your questions.
That's the cover page.
So this, I do have a question on the operating supplies and the gasoline. This is just basic overage due to the price increase we're, going through right now.
That's correct. Our estimated fuel usages were based on, we put those together in August of last year, and obviously there's been some severe fluctuation in the price of gasoline, so based on our current usage, we expect to run out and need additional appropriation money to be able to get through our season of grass cutting and all of our maintenance vehicles that require gasoline. The same can be said for the operating supplies oil as well.
I see. Now this would cover us or take us through the remainder of the year?
That's correct.
Appropriation?
Yeah, there will be no additional appropriations after this with respect to the gasoline or oil or diesel.
I do have one other question in regard to the diesel, and I'm sure you guys are doing this, but I know we have a substantial amount of equipment, lawn equipment, tractors and stuff that operate off-road diesel. Are we buying off-road diesel fuel and getting that rate, or?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I'd point out too, and on the second item on your packet, and obviously the most substantial item in this request is the roof change for the Starrett Center. I did include some photos that were taken just this past week to show the true state of that roof and why it's in desperate need of repair. Both exterior and interior photos, which show the missing tiles, the broken tiles, the streaking, and then the water damage that's occurring on a regular basis on the interior of that facility. And I just remind everybody here tonight that back in, I believe it was 2015 and 2016, that building underwent a substantial remodel totaling just under $500,000. And so building this roof is going to be protecting that investment for the long term. So we definitely want to get that done as soon as possible.
In regard to the roof at the Starrett building, I know that building has a slate roof on it that was probably on it when it was built.
Correct.
Yeah. Are we looking to put that back as a slate roof, or are we going to put that as a shingled roof, or? So
it'll be an asphalt shingle, but it's not your typical asphalt shingle that you see on a traditional household here in Lawrence or anywhere around the country. It's relatively thick, and it's, let me consult my here. It's got essentially a look that replicates slate.
Right.
It has been reviewed and approved by the DNR. As you probably know, that building is on their registry, and so any changes, exterior changes or interior changes, have to be approved by them, and they've seen the material that we intend to use and are approving of it, so we feel it's appropriate.
Did we even look to see what it would be to put it back as a slate roof?
We did, and I believe, I don't have that cost estimate with me here, but I believe it was something attuned to about $120,000 more.
That's what
which
I
is
thought.
almost twice the price of the roof. So we felt like this asphalt look-alike shingle was appropriate, especially since DNR signed off and gave their blessing.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. Anybody have any questions? Maria?
I just have one question. Was any thought given to a metal roof, or was it because of DNR requirements for this property that was not even considered?
No, I don't believe it was ever considered. I think that the intent was always to try to replicate the existing aesthetic of the outside of the building, and I don't think that DNR probably would have allowed us to vary that far from the existing look. Thank you, though.
I do have one other question. Now, this proposal does not cover the park, or I'm sorry, the parking lot for Lawrence Park?
That's correct. Yeah, that was amended out of this proposal
Right.
during Finance Committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I would just have one comment. Thank you for bringing all this forward. I know that these are absolutely necessary, and you can see from the street all of this beautiful design that's went into the Civic Center, and then the roof obviously looks like water may be dripping in on Eric's head and interrupting the work there. And like you said, there's been a lot of renovation on the inside, so it's great to take care of that on the outside. I really appreciate the, as a council member, the thoroughness and the paperwork you provided, so we're able to see pictures and then on the spreadsheets that go along with the financing where we're actually putting this money. So thank you, Joe, for the information. And like I said, as a sponsor, I feel this is a very important project for us to fund and send back to the full council.
Thank you. And if it's appropriate this time, because you brought up the budget process and the paperwork I provided at the end of your speech here, it's a lot to digest in a brief setting, so I want to leave that with you, and if you have any questions, feel free to come back to me or our controller, Tyler Douthit, in the convening weeks, days, whatever it is, if you do have any further questions. But I did want to, at the request of Committee Chair Wells as well as Council President Chavis, I wanted to provide you guys with just a general update of what the parks have been up to in 2022 as of late. And I just put down a list, and I'm just going to read from my list now because I think it's extensive, and it demonstrates how hard our team has been at work. And I'm super proud of this list, so I just felt like I ought to share it in this setting. So council willing, we'll be installing a new roof at the Starrett Center. We're also going to be replacing the HVAC unit, which is original to that building this year. We're in the midst of wrapping up our community center remodel, which was the entire event space as well as the kitchen. We are about to break ground actually this week on the Civic Plaza redevelopment project. If you've seen the renderings on our social media sites for that, it's going to turn into really a top-of-the-line premier event space, which will allow us to compete with our neighboring communities when it comes to our outdoor events. And that's being funded both through the Fort Harrison Reuse Authority as well as a grant that we received from the DNR. We're nearing completion of the pickleball courts at Lee Road Park. That was funded out of the Capital Improvement Fund by the City of Lawrence. We're just about to start work on the design and survey for our Lee Road and 63rd Street trail. You'll remember I was at the last council meeting. We received $1.7 million from the Department of Natural Resources through their Next Level Trails grant program to fund that project, which is really exciting. It's the first kind of award of that kind the city's received, to my knowledge. We've installed new playground facility at Alexander Park. We're also going to be installing a new playground facility at Community Park later this year, and we have the funds to do so. Thanks to council and Maria especially, we've been able to continue expansion of our butterfly habitats throughout our parks and now at our police station as well, which is fantastic. And I think we still have a little bit funding left so we can continue to expand that project in 2022 and beyond. We're nearing the final stages of the Arts for Lawrence Cultural Campus completion. A lot of people don't realize that, but that is a city park. That was formerly the Starrett Center parking lot, and we've turned it into something really, really beautiful. I hope you were out there last Thursday when we hosted our first farmers market. It was something to see. I think that, along with our Civic Plaza, are going to become destinations for people in and out of the city of Lawrence for a long time. Thanks to the great leadership of my colleague Corey Korn back there, we've been able to establish and increase the number of cleanup days we've been able to do throughout our city, but especially in our parks. And we've actually been able to motivate private groups and individuals like the Horizon Christian Church group that was out a couple weeks ago to get into our parks and actually take action and clean those areas up. Recently, it was announced a partnership with Fort Bend State Park, as well as our Tour Lawrence Bike Share program. If you take one of those bikes into the park now, you receive free entry. You don't have to pay your entry, so that's an exciting opportunity for people to continue to explore Lawrence without need for automobiles. In conjunction with the construction of the pickleball court, we're launching brand new adult pickleball and softball leagues through CCA, which is Circle City Athletics, as well as the YMCA, trying to get our folks more involved in our parks and actually make sure that people are in our parks on a regular basis versus how it is right now, where very often you're only in those parks if you're participating in some kind of youth sports event. We want people of all ages and all groups to participate in our parks, so we're really pushing with that with our new adult leagues. And to mention them, we continue to have ongoing great partnerships with our youth leagues, soccer, baseball, softball. If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. And then lastly, we've been able to make significant stormwater drainage improvements at Veterans Park and Lee Road Park this year through great cooperation with our Parks Department as well as our Streets Department with great leadership by Jim Hennigan, our Streets Director. So we want to shout them out. And then obviously it goes unsaid, but it needs to be said in this format. We need to give a special kudos to our park staff who are there every day cleaning up the trash, cutting the grass, doing the weeding, doing the seeding, and doing especially on our event days, a lot of work in preparation for our events and tear down after our events that goes unseen and unmentioned, but we couldn't do what we do without those folks, so we want to give them a special commendation. And then welcome our 2 new part-time summer new hires that we just got on this week. So that's the project list. I've also attached for you guys in your packet there a list of our 2022 events calendar. Not all these are directly parks related, but as I mentioned, our parks do a lot to make sure these events get stood up and torn down on the back end, and a lot of them take place in our parks. So it's hugely important that you guys are aware that those are going on. And again, an additional kudos to Corey and Eric for all the work they do on putting those events on. Lastly, I want to remark just on the ARP funding. This council was gracious enough to give the Parks Department $20,000 as part of the ARP funding plan for 2022, $10,000 for maintenance, and an additional $10,000 for programming. I wanted to report back to this group to let you guys know what we're going to be spending those dollars on this year. First, on the ARP maintenance side, there was $10,000 allocated. We intend to spend the entirety of that $10,000 on resurfacing, installing new surface on all of our playground equipment. So that'll be new, just new material. It's not going to be a rubberized surface or anything like that. It'll just be new, fresh material on all of our existing playground facilities, which is desperately needed in some of our parks. And then on the programming side, we're going to invest that $10,000 in our ongoing Winterfest event. So with Civic Plaza being ready, hopefully by about October, we'll be back at that site with a brand new, exciting feel. And to add to that, we're investing in the purchase of 6 new heaters, so that we heard a lot of comments about, well, we would have stayed longer, but we were so gosh darn cold. So we're getting new space heaters. We're going to add new decorative themed lighting to that space, as well as new banners that highlight Winterfest throughout the entire fort area, so that people can continue to educate themselves about what goes on at Winterfest and hopefully come out and increase the attendance at that event in the future. So we're putting that good money to good use and excited about how we're investing in that to make our parks and our programming a lot better. Any other questions for me at this time?
Anybody? I do have one. In these pictures, I see looks to be some fairly extensive water damage, apparently from the roof leaking. Does this appropriation cover the repairs of this water damage too?
So we have some existing funds within our department that will be able to address those once we get the roof replaced and those stop becoming a recurring issue. Right now, we don't want to go out and repair those things.
Right.
Have a recurring issue, have us do it again. So we do very regularly replace those ceiling tile panels that you see there that are turning brown and slightly moldy. We replace those as a safety concern and a health concern. We replace those as soon as we notice that discoloration. But as far as the remainder, the plaster replacement, as soon as the roof is replaced, that will be fixed using existing general fund dollars in the Parks Department
Okay.
budget.
All right, great, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple questions, but I'm not sure if it's best directed to you or to Director Martin regarding lighting, PA system at the community park on Franklin. Also, I have a question regarding Explorer Park and signage I understood that that was going to be the new type of facade that we have on the signage throughout the city at all the parks, that would occur at Explorer, and somehow that was missed. And we kind of asked about that a couple times, and I was just wondering where that is in the process.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. As it happens today, we had a meeting where that exact topic was brought up, signage in our parks. And I'm happy to report that we're looking into, for some of our smaller parks, a scaled-down version of what we've done at some of our larger parks, just because we don't have the existing frontage on those spaces. So if you're familiar with the new signage put out in front of the Starrett Center, it would be very similar to that at some of our smaller parks, like the Oakland and Play Park and the Explorer Park. But the intention is to phase those in this year and next year to where we can hopefully have all of our signage replaced within the next, well, I guess at this point, 12 to 18 months. And they all have that new facade and look sharp. So that's absolutely something that we're looking into and we hope to accomplish within the next 12 to 18 months. As far as the lighting and the PA system at, you said Community Park? I'm sure that Eric and I would be happy to talk with you. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation, we can even schedule a meeting and have you come in and we can engage in those conversations.
I'm frankly no expert on those particular topics. I've just been asked by various persons who are experts in those areas that there is some need for both of those things in relationship to the softball, baseball diamonds.
And we're aware of those issues, and I think that something that was explored earlier this year was the concept of removing the existing lights at Lee Road Park and relocating them to older poles at a community park. And I think from when we got down that road, the cost differential was versus new lighting wasn't significant, and we felt like it was best that we go ahead and prepare and plan for new lighting there, hopefully in the near future. So we're evaluating that, and I can't give you a full update on when those will come in, but we trust me, those are forefront of my mind, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about that, and we can continue to work towards a solution for everybody.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
One other quick question. This additional appropriation,
Yes.
Where exactly are you planning on pulling that money from?
I believe that might be a question for you, Tyler. Did you hear Councilor Wells' question?
Yeah, so when we ended last year, we ended with roughly, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's like 8.1 in the general fund. So this additional appropriation would come from our general fund unreserved funding, so the cash that we have on hand to do those. We do have some offsetting revenue coming from the energy savings program that the council had approved. That's going to go towards the roof. So that's kind of helped offset some of the costs. There was something that came up in that program, so I think we're going to get $50,000 from them to help go towards the project as well. I think it was closer to $80,000 originally, but that's kind of helped offset the cost as well.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Seeing none, going to ask for a motion. We send this to the full council.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor for approval? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
time. We do have a few other things on the agenda, not on the list, but I know Maria, Councilor Rosmaroff wanted to talk about her butterfly habitat. Is there someone that could give an update on that, please?
Hello, Liz Mazur, a member of the Lawrence Butterfly Project, and what's going on at the four parks currently, Lee Road, Veterans, Richard, and Jen Eyre Park, is that at first glance, you look at those, it's approximately an acre at each park, and you go, blech, what is going on? But then, because it just looks kind of grassy and messy, but do not be deceived. There is what it is. Black-eyed Susans are starting to come up, partridge peas are starting to come up, and remember, the first year, these kinds of plants, the native plants, they sleep, they're not real exciting, but there will be some blooms shortly, and then next year, they'll creep, it'll be a little more exciting, and within the third year, your socks are going to be knocked off. It's going to be spectacular. But so the plants, the prairie habitat at the 4 parks is progressing. And also, we have planted at the Pheasants Forever Trail that's next to Lee Road that was paved. We've put in some wildflowers there. So if you get a chance, Jimmy Hennigan is going to go in and tidy it up. But there are 9 different areas, and with everything from cardinal flowers and lobelias to marsh marigolds to lizard tails. So look for those areas. They're marked with green flags, and they have signs, so you can learn your wildflowers. And we have some money left, and don't you worry, we'll figure out something to spend it on. So that's what I have.
I do have a follow-up, and I think maybe it's best answered by Director Martin. It's regarding the budget that was submitted, regarding a few questions I had about the butterfly funding and so forth. Given that it was from the council, I want to make sure that I stay on top of that and we kind of have a good idea of where we're going. And I see that we've spent about 10.5 or so for the acreage, which is it amounting to about 5 acres or so-ish?
Yeah, I think we paid for just a little over 4 acres with Cardinal, yes.
So I had a couple questions. One is about the signage, which you know how important that is, so folks don't get a bad idea or perception by seeing kind of overgrown, what seems to be overgrown areas in relationship to the Mow ordinance, et cetera.
We have some signage that we ordered from the Monarch Society, and then we also have some that we've purchased from Hall Signing. We're waiting on the last signage, which Liz just described to you, that describes how the garden will look for the next 2 or 3 years. So we're waiting on that, then we'll put them all out at one time. So those are on order, and we should have those here in the next week or so.
Oh, lovely, great. Now, since we've got a few dollars left over, what are your inklings in terms of what we might do with that? Do you have any programming with that funding that you were thinking of, or where are you at with that thinking?
Not exactly, and I'll probably refer that to Liz. I know that she has, they've done the police department with some live plantings and some along the trailway, so we'll probably look at those. We have the ability to purchase some more at a discounted price, so we might do that with some of those funds, so it's an instant reduction. But look at those, and then any ongoing costs, fertilization or any additional signage we might need. So we'll probably save some of that money back for the next 12 to 18 months just to make sure we haven't missed something.
Okay. I don't know if you recollect a meeting we had about a year or so ago with Explorer Park persons and adjacent homeowners and some concerned citizens, et cetera. And we talked about possibly doing a small pollinator garden in that park toward the east side, I believe it was, southeast. Would we might consider using some of those funds to do something over
That would
there?
probably be a small enough plot we could probably hand sow instead of doing a contract with Cardno. Just buy the materials from them and do it somewhat in-house. We could probably do that in-house. Again, it's better to do that in the fall for us and for the seeding. So maybe something we look at this fall.
Okay, great, thank you.
And if we get a material list from Liz, then I can call Cardno and get that if we just do a material list.
Great, thank you.
Chair, I do have a question. In regards to some of those, you were talking about funds and stuff, have we taken into account, because I'm an avid gardener and we, a huge garden in my backyard, but have you guys taken into account, the raise in prices with like fertilization? Because I heard fertilizer is also on the up, as well as like peat moss, you can't find it. Just so if we don't spend every dime, just in case we can make sure that we can have, if it does go up as the supply and demand happens, is that something we're also taking into account?
This discussion with the butterfly gardens, they're meant to not fertilize, we don't.
Yeah, well, just meaning like if we needed to, as we're planting, to get things kind of started, I do know just kind of to help things get the soil ready at the certain toxicity and things, we need to have it at a certain level to help things kind of grow. I just didn't know if that's something we don't need that doesn't have an account here.
Generally on the prairie grasses, no.
Okay.
They adapt and thrive in non-fertiles, and the process, they fertilize themselves. But on the other side, on the park side, yes, we're looking at that. We're having a hard time purchasing fertilizers. It's nearly 50% from last year, so we're being very mindful of how much we utilize and trying to utilize just on the turf areas that we need to. So,
Okay.
thank you. It's expensive.
Eric,
Yeah.
are you familiar with a place called Monarch Meadows Nature Preserve?
I'm not.
Okay. They are, apparently it says here, they're having an event called Butterflies and Beer, Saturday, July the 9th. It says, enjoy the 85-acre preserve while learning about different butterfly species and the history of Monarch Meadows. And then you can get you a cold beer while you're doing it. But anyway, maybe that would be something, we could promote an event of something like that where
Certainly.
maybe not so much the beer, but or maybe so, I don't know.
So maybe we do need it.
But there's been a lot of effort put into this, and I think that maybe if we opened up maybe a public event when we get this thing really rolling.
Yeah, as Counselor mentioned, they don't look real good right now. It looks
Right.
Right, the signage is important, but probably need to give it a year or two to let it
Sure.
mature before we.
Okay.
If I could add to that, Chairman Wells, these were designed so that there would be a trail that's cut through all of the locations, and what I call a carve-out, which allows for benches in the future. We're still in the very embryonic stages of all of this, so that at some future point, that group, the butterfly group, the Lawrence Butterfly Group, has intentions of reaching out for grants and other things to look at benches, look at artwork, look at creating more of an ecotourism sort of theme with these butterfly parks, so that we can have that kind of artwork and events and things along those lines. We're not quite there yet, but that's certainly a part of this whole big picture.
Well, this is down in southeastern Indiana, down by the Ohio River, and I was really amazed at what I've learned from you, and that just how popular this really is. And I think we really need to definitely put some whatever effort we need to do it. Because there's a lot of interest in it.
We've taken the right step forward.
Sure.
Just continuing to march down that way, and we'll have to keep on top of it and add a lot more, actually, so.
Okay. Well, any other questions on the butterflies? Have two other things, and I called Lady Victoria Bonelia. Did I kill the name? Good. Victoria, could you come up? And Victoria met her at the Little League presentation in the grand opening, and she's done a remarkable job, and we definitely want to try to help Victoria for what she does. I know she had a request about possibly expanding the parade to the street, and Eric, you're still here. So Victoria, could you give us just a real quick brief what you would like to see?
So we came from Fall Creek, Little League, and we moved to Community Park. So our parade was always from the tennis court to the field. But over here, we have a lot more space. We have a lot more kids. So with it being on the high school field to the very first field, it's really, really tight. So if we could get it, even maybe just through the park street itself to that field, I would be okay with that. You don't necessarily have to shut down a whole road because the little kids are not going to make it that far. So just something we had talked about from Harmon Way to the park and possibly like adding some different things. We added your golf cart this year, just different little things that people want to see. The people in that community still want to see a parade. They still want to enjoy it. So.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Victoria? Eric, is that anything that you see that she's asked for?
Very much possible. We did a little planning early on.
Okay. Well, we attended, actually, most of us here attended the grand opening, and it was really impressive. You did a wonderful job. You really have. And, you know, I think that the council and the Parks Department needs to support you and because of your support to the children. And the mayor, he was driving a really cool golf cart, so we can give him a little longer road to drive again next year.
All right.
So, anybody have any questions, or we're okay? Victoria, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did have one other question for Eric. If I could get you to come to the podium again, please. I'm sorry, didn't mean to bounce you up and down. But you and I had a discussion about the car club.
Yes.
And could you give that update that you gave me to the committee? Because I know that's a big concern, this car club coming and taking over our park.
Last year, we all remember the car club that invaded Community Park and had some dangerous driving and racing up and down Franklin Road. By some good work of our police department and also from the Indiana State Police and also Marion County Indianapolis Police Department, they provided some information about upcoming events that were scheduled at Community Park. So our police department went very active, and we closed the park down on a Sunday afternoon. Thank goodness only one car showed up, and then my understanding is they all redirected to Riverside Park in Indianapolis, and they had quite a problem down there. They had some speeding cars, they had some stolen cars, they had guns and other things. So our police department has been very responsive, trying to keep that activity out. Actually, we still have the barricades up at Community Park just in case something happens. They can close the road down instantaneously. But that was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we haven't had any other problems, so they're keeping on top of it.
So, just so I understand, the guns, the stolen vehicles, that would have been in our park had it not been for the proactiveness of our police department?
And yes. So.
And that, so we, as the council, don't have to worry about having, you know, the neighbors calling me up, and I'll have to go over there on a Saturday or a Sunday and see all this craziness.
Yeah, all these events are on social media, so it's important that police department monitor those, and again, if you hear anything, certainly let our police department know.
Sure.
Don't think the car shows that you would have would be involved in anything that silly, but they're trying to really close these dangerous programs down, so.
So you're pretty comfortable that we're not going to have a repeat of that this summer?
I'm comfortable saying that we will not, yes.
Okay. Any questions? Any concerns? Eric, thank you for your time. And if there's nothing else, we're adjourned.
Mr.